So if you watch the channel, you'll know that in my last video, I got scammed on a gaming PC. You can check it out right here. It might give some more context to this video, but here's the short of it. I bought a broken gaming PC on Facebook Marketplace. The guy said it sort of worked. It booted up for 5 minutes and then just randomly stopped working, and I thought it would be okay. But I think it was about 5 parts were individually broken in their own unique ways. The CPU had a crack on it, the motherboard had a bent pin, one of the RAM sticks didn't work, the SSD was completely dead, and I think that was it actually. But yes, a lot of the parts didn't work. But in this video, I'm going to be seeing what I can salvage from it and whether or not I can actually flip a good gaming PC from it, as I did manage to get a few of the components working. So yeah, let's see if we can do that. So let's jump right into the PC build. Alright, starting off our build is our motherboard, the MSI H270A Pro, which supports 6th and 7th gen i5s. Yes, I'm a child. Next we have our i5-7400, which has a little crack on the side, but nothing that can't be used. And yes, we do have a bent CPU pin on the motherboard. However, it is a redundant pin, so it's not actually mandatory for the system. So the system actually does work fine at first glance. However, I will of course be testing this entire PC in Windows, running stress tests just to make sure that everything works okay. Next up, we have our single 8GB stick of RAM, as the other RAM stick that he gave me was completely dead. It was looking the same as this, but it was not from the same kit and it was just completely dead. So just one stick of RAM, 8GB of DDR4 at 3200 MHz. But of course this isn't going to run at full speed as it's an i5-7400. For our case that we're using today, we're using the Thermaltake View 200. It's got 4 RGB fans and a nice tempered glass front and side panel. It's pretty basic, but it costs $75 off of Amazon, so can't do much better than that. And also it's ATX sized. I would normally opt for the Thermaltake View 270, however it costs significantly more, and for this build I just can't really, use that price. It's definitely one of Thermaltake's cheaper cases, but it's alright I reckon. Now we don't actually have an IO shield for this build. It's going to be way too cheap for me to actually bother buying one from eBay. Instead, it's just going to go without one, which is okay because it's definitely going to be sold at a cheap price. Alrighty, that's our motherboard installed. Now let's put in the power supply. Alrighty, next up is our power supply. So for the power supply, it's just a Cooler Master 500 watt Master Light. It's a pretty basic power supply, but it should definitely do the job. Next, we're just going to plug in all our power connectors for our CPU and our motherboard, as well as our front IO cables down the bottom. Then for our CPU cooler, I'm actually going to use this Cooler Master 240mm AIO. I just have it laying around, and I kind of want to get rid of it, so I'll just price it at like a decent price for an AIO. Yeah, let me put that in. So I've just installed the CPU cooler, and I just need to use the screwdriver to tighten down the screws. Not too tight, just enough so that they won't come loose. And that, in my opinion, is looking like a pretty awesome PC build, to be honest. Now, the only step left is to put in the graphics card and do some last minute cable managing. So I'm going to do the cables first because I love finishing with a nice graphics card. Alrighty, I reckon that actually looks like a pretty good PC. So I've got the AIO installed, and yeah, I really like it. I'm just using the stock black fans. I was thinking about putting RGB ones in, but I was just like, at this price, it's not really worth it. And my oh my, I did a great job at cable managing. This is honestly one of the best jobs I've ever done, especially considering the amount of cables. Now, don't look down there. That's just the rat's nest of fan cables, but it's really clean, really tight, and really easy to put the side panel on. So I'm really proud of myself for that. But nonetheless, let's see if she boots up. Alrighty, RGB lights come on. She looks pretty good. Now let's see. Oh, there's an LED coming on the motherboard. That's not good. I'll give it a second. Alright, it doesn't seem to be booting. I'm just going to plug in the DisplayPort cable into the motherboard and see if that helps. Yes. All right. Maybe the GPU isn't working after all. Okay. Okay, so if the CPU integrated graphics are working completely fine, I'm in Windows on the PC right now, but the GPU isn't working, it begs the question, what's not working? I do have this Wi-Fi card, and it's getting power, it's working all good. So I wonder if I can see Wi-Fi in Windows. Because if I can see Wi-Fi in Windows, it suggests to me that the PCIe slot isn't working properly. I am getting power to the graphics card though. And I have used this graphics card in another system and tested that it works. But I haven't tested that PCIe slot. So I've got a weird feeling that it's the PCIe slot that's broken. So I'm just going to test to see if the Wi-Fi works. Let's see if that works. Alright, so I'm in Windows, and if I click on this, if it pops up with some Wi-Fi networks, yes, it does work. So what that means is that this PCIe slot is dead, because when I tried plugging the Wi-Fi adapter in there, it wouldn't work. So I think the PCIe slot's dead, which means that I'm going to have to move the graphics card into a lower slot. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this graphics card runs off of, if this PCIe slot down below runs off of the chipset or the CPU. I'd probably say it's probably the chipset, so that could have some consequences for performance. But hey, let's just see how it goes first. So right now I'm going to turn it off and put the graphics card into that slot. Unfortunately, because this case does have the pull-out tabs for the PCI slots, it means that I can't put those back, which is kind of annoying because it means there's going to be like a gap at the back of the PC. So I'm a little disappointed at that, but that's okay. I'm also going to have to take out this Wi-Fi card. I'll have to put it in a different slot if there are other slots that work. So let's just pull out these two tabs here. There's already one taken out. So I've just got to take this one out, and then I'll pop the graphics card in and we'll see if it works, which I really hope it does work. It also looks to me like on the PCIe slot, only 8 pins are connected. So the graphics card should run, hopefully. It might be limited in its PCIe connectors. However, hopefully it runs, and I need to take out the screw first. I would definitely say there's a lot more sag in this slot compared to the others, but that's alright. Okay, now all we have to do is plug in our HDMI, and let's see if the PC boots, alright? So, do we get that weird light? Hopefully not. I haven't seen the light come on yet. I've seen a light. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. This is a real big doozy. Alright, I think I'm just going to abandon ship with the RX 580, and I will just use the 1660 Super in this system. I'm going to try plug in the 1660 Super into the top slot just to see what happens, you know. I'm just curious. Because maybe I can use the top slot at least. And then it won't look really weird in the system. But, you know, given that the Wi-Fi card didn't work in the top slot, I wouldn't be surprised if the PCI slot doesn't work either. Alright, if this works, I'm just going to stick with this, and it's going to be a little bit of a janky configuration. Yeah. But hey, if it works, it works. There we go, that's in. Plug in the DisplayPort cable, and away we go. Something's already happened on the screen. The little DisplayPort no signal thing popped up, but that's going to be a brief one because now it's going to work. Alright, so the verdict, okay? Top PCI lane is dead. No power, no nothing. This PCI lane, 16X, would work if the RX 580 did not require all 16 lanes. This one only has 8 connected, so that's why it's not booting. But yeah, overall, like, this is okay. I definitely need to test the gaming performance, make sure it works all good before I sell it. But yeah, I think this is okay. Alright, so what actually happened? Because to be honest, I don't really know. So the RX 580 would not work with the system no matter what I tried. So eventually I just put in a 1660 Super that I had laying around. Then after that, I listed it on eBay because eBay just recently took away selling fees in Australia. So that's pretty cool. Yes, people do still have to pay for eBay buyer protection, but it means that it's a little bit easier to predict what you're actually going to get through eBay rather than having to go through eBay seller fee calculators. Anyway, put that aside. So I listed it on eBay and it looked like this. To be honest, it looked pretty good. I liked it. The graphics card in the bottom slot didn't make it look too bad. And yeah, I listed it on eBay and eventually I sold it and made a total net gain of 262.55 Australian dollars. Except I'll have you know that it actually did cost more than that to build. But the final costings for the build are as follows. So for the CPU, motherboard, power supply, GPU, RAM, and not including the SSD because I just had that spare 120 gig SSD laying around, that all cost $150. So that's the PC that I bought from the guy. Now, yes, I did switch out the graphics card with a 1660 Super. However, they're about the same value on the used market, so I'm just going to count that as included in the price. And then in terms of the case, that costs $75. And then lastly, the CPU cooler, a comparable CPU cooler on Amazon right now is $57. Now, yes, when I paid for the CPU cooler, it cost me like $100, but I did use that in my personal system. So I'm just going to use like a comparable price of a normal new CPU cooler. So in total, it cost $282.11, and I got $262.55, which is a loss overall. But I think it's pretty well established that I managed to get most of my money back, which I was not expecting at all from this PC build. And yes, hopefully these videos do well and they can monetize some of the losses that I incurred. Yes, if you did enjoy this video and this form of interesting journalism, make sure you like, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. And as always, I'm TechBiz and I'm out.